Martha and Lillian had been best friends since childhood, practically like sisters. During their high school years, Martha became pregnant and gave birth to a baby boy. Lillian, of course, became the godmother of the baby boy, who was later named Peter. After Peter's birth, Martha and Lillian enrolled in university and successfully completed their studies. They both secured well-paying jobs at different companies, becoming quite wealthy. Meanwhile, Peter was growing up to be a very handsome young man who at 15 years old was already more mature and physically developed than his peers. Peter was very close to his godmother, even more than to his own mother, and often listened to her advice more than his mother's. Martha was very happy that her son loved her friend just as much as he loved her, his mother. Unknown to them, he was in love with his godmother. From the age of 16, he started spending more time at Lillian's home. This made it difficult for Lillian to maintain a steady relationship. Whenever Lillian's boyfriend came looking for her, Peter would make excuses claiming that Lillian was unavailable or busy. He would suggest to her boyfriend that he should move on from her. When Lillian later called her boyfriend, he would either tell her to continue with her always busy life or even block her. This continued for a long time. Lillian would confide in Martha in tears, expressing her frustration and feeling as though she were under a curse that prevented her from being in a successful relationship or getting married. Martha reassured her that the right man would come along. Whenever she said that, Peter agreed with his mother, saying he had been saying the same thing. This continued for a while until Lillian chose not to pursue any relationships. By then, Martha was already in a committed relationship. At 25, Peter looked remarkably mature and handsome, giving the impression that he was in his early 30s. Lillian, on the other hand, remained as elegant and beautiful as ever. Martha got married, and Peter saw his mother's marriage as an opportunity to live with his godmother Lillian, wanting to be close to her. When his mother opposed, he told her he was an adult and could make decisions for himself. Besides, he didn't want to feel left out with his mom and her new husband, so he chose to stay with Lillian. Lillian herself agreed and didn't see any problem with it. After all, Peter had been spending more time at her place, even staying for weeks, so it wasn't unusual. Therefore, they started living together, which brought them even closer. When you see them playing together, you might think they are in a relationship. To Lillian, Peter was like a grown son. But to Peter, Lillian was more than just a mother figure. One day, Lillian expressed her readiness to enter into a new relationship. Peter urged her not to, cautioning that it would likely end the same way as her previous relationships and that she shouldn't bother. She argued that this time would be different, that he should not have a say in this and that he should remember he's her godson. But they ended up having a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that led him to leave the house. He returned to his mom's house, and for 2 weeks they didn't speak to each other. His mother, Martha, called her friend and asked her why they hadn't spoken for 2 weeks. Lillian narrated everything that happened to her friend. Martha just chuckled and remarked that Peter was merely being protective of her, which only added to Lillian's confusion. However, deep down, Martha had been noticing her son's behavior towards her friend, though she was reluctant to admit that her son liked her friend in that way. She assured Lillian that she would talk to her son and offer him advice before ending the call. Later, she approached Peter and he insisted that he was only concerned for her safety, nothing more. He took his mom's advice and returned to Lillian's house. When Lillian came home from work, she saw him, but because she was still upset with him, she acted like she didn't see him. He felt sad and it continued for days. He did his best to get her to talk, but she wouldn't. Lillian noticed how distant and unhappy he seemed, and she felt guilty for causing his distress. However, she also wanted to stand up for herself and address the rumors about them dating. She stopped referring to him as her godson when talking to people. Whenever people asked about her boyfriend Peter, she would say he was her godson, and they would laugh at her. Some of her close friends suggested that Peter was in love with her, but she dismissed the idea, saying it was not possible. It was because of those rumors and suggestions from her friends that she decided to tell him she wanted to enter a relationship just to see his reaction. That's why, when he went to his mom's place, she didn't try to call him or visit her friend. She also wanted to figure out her feelings for him, because how could she explain to her friend that she had feelings for her 28-year-old godson? Martha wouldn't approve, so she believed that was the best way to keep them separated. She missed their closeness and all the things they used to do together, but she felt the need to put an end to it all. One day, Peter got back from work earlier than Lillian and prepared a delicious dinner for them both. When she got back and saw everything, she was surprised. When she saw him, she acted like she didn't care. He begged her not to ignore him and shared that he got a promotion at work. Happily, she hugged him tightly, congratulating him. Realizing what she had just done, she tried to push him away, but Peter wouldn't let go. She then told him firmly to let go or she wouldn't talk to him again. That's when he had released her. During dinner, they started chatting like they used to, laughing and teasing each other. Then Peter asked her what her ideal man was, but she shook her head and refused to answer. Peter couldn't keep his feelings inside any longer and confessed that he was in love with her. He admitted he had been in love with her since he was 16 years old, but she just kept quiet. He repeated his feelings, saying he was sure she loved him too, and that was why she had been avoiding him. He also confessed that he was the reason her other relationships didn't work out. She began to cry and explained to him that they wouldn't work out because his mother wouldn't approve. He said they were adults and shouldn't worry about what others would say. He kept pleading until she agreed to be in a relationship with him. But with the condition that they keep it a secret from his mother, he agreed and they began dating. Lillian tried to keep their relationship a secret, but Peter was too happy and couldn't contain his joy. Even when they visited his mom, Lillian acted distant towards him, which surprised Martha, but she didn't mention anything about it. This made Peter feel sad. When they returned home, Peter ignored her. Lillian asked why he was ignoring her, and Peter asked why she was acting cold towards him in front of his mother. She pleaded with him, explaining that she was afraid Martha would find out. He accepted her apology and they reconciled. A year and 3 months later, Lillian became pregnant. She told Peter, and he was overjoyed. He began discussing marriage, which made Lillian feel scared. She was scared of what people would say, especially Martha. She started crying and blamed Peter for everything. Peter told her she shouldn't worry about what people would say, but she continued to blame him. Peter felt hurt and told her that the problem lies with her. He expressed that she had never accepted him as an adult, despite his efforts to prove himself to her. He wanted her to see him as a mature man who could take care of her, but she was unwilling to see him in that way. To her, he would always be little Peter, her godson. He told her he was done with everything since she could never see him as a mature adult. With that, he left the house. 2 weeks passed and Peter still hadn't returned home. Lillian called Martha and inquired about how they were doing, then asked if Peter was there. Martha told her he wasn't and asked if they had another misunderstanding, but Lillian denied it and quickly hung up. However, whenever she returned from work, she always found money and fruits on the dining table, along with a note instructing her to take the fruits and use the money to take care of herself. She would cry even more and wish he had stayed. She kept missing him until she couldn't bear it anymore. She went to see Martha and shared everything that had happened. To her surprise, Martha hugged her and revealed that Peter had already told her everything. She explained that she had been waiting for Lillian to say something, so she could understand if Lillian also felt the same way about her son. She fully welcomed her into the family, expressing that now their sisterhood had a bloodline. With tears on her face, Lillian thanked Martha, then informed her that she was going to search for her stubborn godson. son, and she left. But when she arrived home, she found Peter waiting for her outside the door. She ran to hug him and apologized for not fully accepting him. With tears on his face, Peter thanked her for fully accepting him. A few months later, they welcomed a baby girl into the world. 4 months later, they got married and lived together happily ever after.